Hi, Eric here with another Sketchmap episode, one of my favorite formats. Today I'm here to talk to you about a question that I've learned to use that makes almost everything more worthwhile. Now before I share what that is, be sure if you haven't already to download the Sketchmap PDF. It's a link down below right to my website where you can get it for free. You can follow along in this video or use it as a reference later. Feel free to also subscribe and hit the little bell if you want to be alerted of more Sketchmap episodes like this. So what's the one question that can make everything worthwhile? Well, before I tell you, let's talk about what it means for something to be more worthwhile. How do you make things better? Have you ever had one of those days where you go, did I even do anything meaningful today? How about meetings and you just don't want meetings that stink anymore? Perhaps just relationships. They could be business relationships or personal relationships. Or maybe you hold a sales role and knowing what makes things worthwhile for the person you're talking to can make all the difference in your opportunities. And if you work with colleagues, you run teams of people in your organization, I think you're going to find this question to be tremendously helpful too, along with scads of different examples and opportunities for how to use it. So what's the question? The question is, so I've learned one question that makes so many things better simply by asking it. What's the one question? It's super simple, really. It's actually as simple as this. What has to happen for you to call it a success? What's it, you might ask? Good question. Let's pull that apart for a second, and we're going to insert another piece in there to complete what it is. In order to do that, what you're going to do is you're going to insert a word in or by, and you're going to name the event, situation, or time frame you're talking about. So we're going to take this piece and we're going to pop it into here, and that's the question. What has to happen for you to call it a success? And right there, you're going to specify an in or a by as to what it is. I've really found that there's three main ways you can ask this question. One of them is you can ask yourself the question. So when I'm using this for myself, I'm clarifying my why for anything I do to make sure that it's time well spent, that it's meaningful from my point of view. So for example, I might ask myself in the morning, what has to happen by the end of today for me to call it a success? And now what are the odds that I'm going to really do a good job of making sure I get to that one thing rather than get distracted because I never even declared my why for today? And maybe I have multiple whys for the day. Oftentimes before I walk into a meeting, if I've got my own why that I need to inspect, I might ask myself, what has to happen in the meeting I'm about to go into for me to call it a success? What do I want out of that meeting? What are the odds you're going to have a much more meaningful and worthwhile meeting simply for asking the question? If I'm in relationships with others, I want to make sure that it's mutually beneficial, so I have to start with my why. And asking yourself this question can be a tremendous advantage ahead of time. Scooch that one over, and now let me give you the second way I found helpful to use this question, and that is to ask others. Find out what matters to the people you're with. If you're with team members, colleagues, people you're transacting with, find out by asking them what has to happen. So if I walk in, for example, to a meeting and there's a group of people or just one other person, I might ask that one other person, what has to happen by the end of this meeting for you to call it a success? Now, this throws people off sometimes. People sometimes are just coming into meetings rote. Maybe they're not thinking about it, or maybe they really know exactly what it is and they'll tell you what it is. And now you don't have to beat around the bush and have a bunch of wasted time. Just get to what matters to them, as long as it matters to you too. And for the third, I like to share it. That means reverse Jeopardy this thing. Instead of the form of a question, take the question mark out, just make it a sentence, and share what has to happen in order for you to call something a success. You want to galvanize help from others? Let them know what you define success as. Good people will want to help you. Maybe your success also helps them be successful too. So simply sharing it, not in the form of a question, but just letting people know what would make a given situation, a given meeting, a success from your point of view. Nothing has people work together like a shared success opportunity. And so these are the three ways I've found most helpful to ask this question. Let me just riff on some examples. Like when I go to ask others, if I have people on my teams that just feel like they're drifting through the day, I might ask someone else, what has to happen by the end of today for you to call it a success? And I just listen. It's a cool leadership move. Because sometimes people know exactly what they need to do, and sometimes they really are adrift. And simply by asking them, you notice that they don't have the answer, and they can come up with one. Now, I like people to come up with their own, but if they can't, well, then darn it, I'm going to give them a few to audition. Is it that you need to do this? Is it that if you accomplish this, if you set up this for our next project, and let them audition which one makes the most sense from their point of view. Get them used to the skill. I'm actually trying to get them to ask themselves this question by doing that. Another way that I ask others, have you ever found yourself in a meeting? Maybe you're trying to transact for a sale, and you just sort of wish, like, what matters most to the other person? Rather than guess 100 ways and get it wrong, just ask people. Hey, I notice as we're sitting here that I find myself asking one question, and I'll ask it of you. What has to happen for you to call this transaction a success from your point of view? And just shush. Listen to what they have to say. They might give you that price is the biggest deal, and you might then say, you know, what do you think of this and this as well? And they might go, oh, I didn't think of that. That's important too. Or maybe price isn't the biggest deal. Maybe they need to save time or money, or there's some other situation they're solving for, but you won't know unless you ask them. When we ask ourselves the question, really what we're doing is we're saying, what from my point of view makes this a success for me? And so that's how you define your own success. Now, if what we do is we ask others, what we're really doing is saying, what do they call a success? And then if we go and we share it with others, then really what we're doing is we're bringing those two together, looking for that overlapping part in the middle that we would call a success. Because we want to galvanize help and lead people to outcomes or follow others to outcomes, finding that shared success is tremendous. So whether you ask yourself, you ask others, or you simply share what you define as success, you can try this question in all kinds of different ways to get at the heart of what's meaningful. And by getting at the heart of it, walking into a given situation or interaction with somebody, the odds are you're going to find them much more worthwhile. Have some fun with it. Not only asking people like in a given meeting, but try asking yourself in longer amounts of time. Like, for example, at the beginning of the year, I like to ask myself, what has to happen this year for me to call it a great year? And that way, when I start working on my quarterly projects, I can start making sure I'm aiming at what I said would call it a great year. Maybe it's in life, maybe it's in finance, career, or business and teams. Whatever it is, take it as long as you can make it work and link the little answers to the question to the bigger ones. And you start to create a strategy for how to make things really meaningful and worthwhile from one simple question. What has to happen for you to call something a success? Simply asking the question of yourself or to others makes it so easy to make everything more worthwhile. Try it on. And when you do, let me know down below in the comments, how did it go? What version of this question did you use? Or if you have any questions in using the question, let me know that too. I'm happy to help. And if you enjoyed this video or want to visit more like it, feel free to grab the sketch map down below in the link. Also feel free to subscribe or hit the little bell to be alerted when I upload more episodes just like this. And until next time, set NēXTpectations. Okay, another secret weapon of this particular question that I've learned. I used to ask for my assistant whenever someone would try to make an appointment with me to ask what the purpose of the meeting was. What I learned was that people thought that I was screening them, like if they didn't have a valuable enough purpose, I wouldn't meet with them. So all I did was switch it to this question. And now my assistant simply asks anybody who wants to make an appointment with me, what has to happen in this appointment with Eric for you to call it a success? And now they tell me the purpose of the meeting so that I can be prepared. But they thought it was because I was screening them. Now they think it's about them. How can I make the meeting a success for them? Pretty cool, right?